It's amazing.
It says you are live. Welcome.
Live.
Welcome, everyone.
I love it.
Hello, and welcome to Facebook Live at Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. The camera's reversed, but it's over there. It's there. There it is. Grateful, Ready, Open. I'm Arnold Mangioli, and I'm here this evening with the wonderful and talented and extraordinary human being, Lance Roberts.
Thank you.
And we will be talking with Lance tonight about several things: his acting career, which I want to tell you about, and then I'll let him tell you about it too. And then Broadway's Calling, which is a YouTube channel series that Lance has started during this pandemic, which is phenomenal. I am quite addicted to it, and I just want to encourage everybody to get on and to enjoy that, because it is something very, very special for the theater community. It really gives you that fix. It goes into that place where we're feeling a little empty right now, and fills you right up. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about, as we do, gratitude, readiness, openness, and willingness, and how those attributes have played a role in Lance's life and work, and continue to. So I want to remind everybody at the start just a few things. One is when you comment or ask a question, which you are absolutely welcome to do throughout, we'll talk 45 minutes to an hour. When Lance gets tired of me, he'll say, "Arnold, I've had enough," and then I'll sign off for us. But we will be chatting, and if you want to put your questions in the little chat there, if you are a StreamYard person or have given approval to StreamYard, which is the platform we're using going into Facebook, then it will show up your name. If not, it will just say Facebook user, as I think we just saw. So the way to deal with that, if you want your name seen, would be to just type in your name at the beginning of a comment, and then we'll know it's you, and we'll be able to say hi. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I want to remind everybody that we do this to support the Actors Fund, which is also what Lance is doing with his project. And it's it's a time where we all need to come together and be there for one another, where those who can share what they have. So for us, our donate button is on the Facebook page, Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. The Facebook page has a link to to the group, and we can't put the donate button in the group because Facebook doesn't let us do that. So if you go back to the page and you go down to one of the first videos, it will say that. If not, just private message me and I'll give you the information. But what I've been saying to people mostly is, if you love what you're doing, then if you love what you're seeing here, if you love what you're experiencing, please just give what you can to the Actors Fund, even $5. It really will help. And us helping one another is what it's all about, because we are all we got right now. So that is the introduction. Lindsay, am I forgetting anything? Lindsay's with us. She's there, right there, right there. The other way. There she is. It's a reverse camera. It's so hard and disorienting. Am I forgetting anything, Lindsay, or are we good to dive in?
I think you're good to dive in. I'll pop in when questions come up, if they don't come across the stream at the bottom.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have the great privilege today of being with the very wonderful Lance Roberts. I'm just going to say right to you, Lance, you are one of those people who is a casting director's dream.
Wow.
The last show I called that I brought Lance in for, it was an offer. It was, how about Lance Roberts? And the creative team took one look at his resume and said, this guy? I said, I've seen this guy for many years. And they were like, yeah, if you believe in him, let's do it. And for a casting director to have people, to know people, to have people on their roster, to be able to say, this is a person who can do it. This is a person who's going to take that solo number and knock it out of the park. This is a person who's reliable. This is a person who's really good, and you can bring them in. And you don't get into the well, this person is a TV star and at a level where you have to be very careful how we ask. And you don't get into the directors and producers saying, well, I don't really see the credits. Are you sure they're good? How do you know? Lance, you are one of the people who your credits speak for themselves. I shared this on a promo video I did for tonight. This is Lance's resume. It's solid credits. It's 4 pages. it's more Broadway credits than Glenn Close. I mean, seriously, it's just awesome. So there's no director, no producer who's not going to say like, yeah, let's get this guy. And also, as a casting director, to know how you deliver, that you deliver and you deliver beyond what they expect. And what happened was you were in that reading, and that reading went to a workshop, and the workshop went to another workshop. And then when it was going to production, they said, let's open up all the roles and let's see on all the roles. You know, they love to do that. And with this role, they were like, well, nobody is anywhere near Lance Roberts. And I was like, whoa. I know. So why do you put me through that and put the other actors through that when we know who we want? So I'm so thrilled that you're still there with that. For everybody to know, Lance is a Broadway factotum, and I say that with the most admiration. Just that you can do almost any role in any show, and I just want to say that includes My Fair Lady, Sunset Boulevard, Finding Neverland, Gotta Dance, Act 1, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Ghost, Sister Act, The Pee Wee Herman Show, and the first with David Alan Grier, which I saw years ago. When I
was 0, I was only 0 for that.
You were show. 0 years old. I was 0 years old watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Just beautiful, beautiful. It's such a beautiful body of work, and your credits speak to themselves. And you go back and forth from comedy to drama, straight plays to musicals. There's just so much wonderful stuff you put out there. And then this Broadway shutdown came about on March 12th. I always refer to it as that weekend when Friday the 13th and the Ides of March and the full moon all collided, and Broadway shut down for what is, I guess, over 6 months now, right? Mm-hmm. And people are looking for ways to use their time productively and creatively. And Lance has created a show that runs on a YouTube channel called Broadway's Calling. And if you are not subscribed, I urge you to do so. Lance, with his warmth and charm and great humor and incredible smile and incredible laughter, he is interviewing the likes of Glenn Close and Donna Murphy and Lillias White and Leslie Kritzer and all of our Broadway beloveds, Rob McClure. I know I'm forgetting dozens of them in there.
And the new young stars like Christy Altamar and Ben Fankhauser. They're so phenomenal.
Yeah, just great people. And it's these warm, charming interviews with talking to them about getting that first call for Broadway for the first time. Mm-hmm. And his production values are extraordinary. He has clips from everywhere that every guest is like, where'd you find that? How'd you dig that up? Wow. Lance,
that's my favorite part too. I love doing that.
Oh, it's so impressive. Yeah, you're not going to see any of that tonight. Not at all. It's just us. It's just our talking heads. That's what I got for you.
That's my clip.
Fortunately, I have a talking head of such an entertainer that I'm not worried about all. So I think what everybody wants now is for me to stop talking and for me to turn it over. And Lance, if you wouldn't mind, if you could start by just telling us a little bit about your career, your acting work, what you're doing, and what your life is to this point. And then let's talk about how you came up with the inspiration to bring us all such comfort and to bring all of the Broadway stars we know and love into our living rooms by creating this series, and what that transition was like for you, because I know so many of us are hungering for just such a wonderful transition. My earbuds keep popping out. It's another production value.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So tell us about you.
Well, first off, thank you so much, Arnold, for having me on this show. I really appreciate that. And thank you also for being one of those casting directors who are really, you pay attention to your actors, you go see all of the shows, you have an incredible mind to remember what everyone does, and there's tens of thousands of actors for you to remember. You have to watch television, movies, you have to see off-Broadway, Broadway, the showcases, and the auditions. And so, you know, as one of those actors who, you know, gets to come in for you, and we have so many wonderful casting directors now. I think we're in a renaissance of great casting directors who really care about the actors, care about the projects, are almost, you know, producers as well, just really in the directors and the writers and the creative staff's mine, and I really appreciate that. So I think it's a great honor, when to hear, because we don't get to hear what the casting directors, the work that you're putting in to get us into the room and into the job. So I really appreciate hearing that. And I hope other actors who are out there realize that you guys are in there, like you're plugging. It's like, no, I know this person. Trust me, I've seen them, because you've done it 1,000 times. And most people who are maybe creating a piece have done it once, maybe twice. And so you really are the authority more so than anyone. People forget about that. And I think you should be part of the Tony Award. If something wins Best Musical or Best Play, I think the casting director should also be part of the Tony Award.
Thank you. That's been a 30-year battle, which I tell you about some night over a cup of coffee.
It's not done without you guys. It's just, you all. So I've always thought that. I'm like, wait, what about the casting director? They're the ones with the list, so, but I just wanted to say that. But talking about Broadway's Calling, it's been a Facebook page for, I think, around 2011, 2012. And, talking to friends backstage of various Broadway shows, and people were telling me these stories about when they first got the call to be on Broadway. And the whole thing is that everyone who's been on Broadway has gotten the call. You don't just walk into a Broadway theater. Someone will call you. Even if your parents are footing the bill, they're going to say, hey, honey, you're going to be in a Broadway show. And what is that moment like? Because I know for me, it was a phenomenal moment. And then the moment happened, and then the show happened, and then it quickly closed. But I was luckily, so I never got to go on stage, after getting the call the first time.
So let's talk about that. I was going to ask you about your Broadway call. Tell us a little more about it. Was it for the first?
It was for the first.
Your first was the first.
Exactly. And it's so interesting. I don't know if the camera will pick it up. Like we go that away on the window. Wait, no, that's the wrong direction. On the window. I don't know if you can see way back there. It's a little stained glass, the first stained glass that I found at the Broadway flea market, and no one knew what it was because this is back in 1981. And I felt like all of my friends were on Broadway except for me. And I remember walking down the street, I'm like, oh, my career is over. I'm almost 22. Literally, it was ridiculous. And, most people, if you're a performer, you know what that's like. You get to that point where you think, well, it's me, wah, 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 wah. But I remember having this moment and saying, it's like, don't worry about it. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. And just because you're not given the opportunity doesn't mean that you can't move forward and do and exercise your desires. So
you had the bar very high because you went to high school with Donna Murphy.
Yes, that's very, very true.
I went to college with Donna Murphy.
Oh.
So
and she had already been on Broadway for like 3 years, but it was like everybody I'd worked with was on Broadway. And I'm born, I grew up here in New York City as well. So it's like, I thought, well, shouldn't I be on Broadway as well? And which is interesting because there weren't that many African Americans just on Broadway, even when I was trying to do it. So, but anyway, I get the call 1 month before my 22nd birthday. And I remember I was with a friend of mine and they lived on the Upper West Side. And back then we had answering services, and it was JU6 6300. I'll never forget. And, I called and they said, oh, hi, there's a message from Gatchel Neufeld, who were the big general managers at the time. And I was like, what? I mean, Gatchel Neufeld.
Peter.
Yeah, they don't call you unless there's like some news. And so like I called them and it was like very late. And they said, hi, we'd like to offer you the swing position in the first on Broadway. And I was with my friends and we were like, oh my goodness. And there was a great restaurant called Nick's out on Broadway in like 76. And I was like, we got to go have a burger and something and whatever. And we're walking down the street. Now, I'm not really a dancer, but, I was a little nimble then. I was like, hold on. And I like jumped and did a bell kick. It's the last bell kick I did because swear I was like, oh my goodness, why would I try that? But I just had to do something so exuberant. And so, I go to the theater, and it was at the Martin Beck Theater. It was called, what is it now? The Hirschfeld now, where Moulin Rouge is playing. It was the Martin Beck Theater, and they showed me my dressing room all the way upstairs on like the 19th floor, and it was so far up. But I was like, I've got a dressing room, and I mean, it looked like a barrack. It's so scary and dank and cement walls. But I was on Broadway, and I had a little dressing room, and so what happened was they were still in previews, and in those days they didn't really hire the swing or even the understudies, sometimes the opening night. So I was hired, but they didn't give me a contract because they were like, oh, we'll get around to that before we open. Well, it still didn't come, but what they did was they invited me to the opening night party, and then the next day they said, come to the theater for your contract. Well, I was going to the theater for my contract, but also going to the theater the day after we opened, which we didn't get the best reviews. It wasn't like they hated the show. They just weren't that excited about the first Black person to be in the major leagues and for baseball. Martin Charnin, they also were sort of gunning for him because he had really gotten huge with Annie, and this was his next big Broadway show, and so they were really gunning for him. But the show was lovely. It had people were cheering for it, and it's a great story. It's a great American story, which now is probably a better time to do it. Then people were like, oh, there's been the first a lot of things, so who cares? And Mike Nichols actually told that to Martin Charnin. But what Martin Charnin said on this day, and he said, if we're lucky enough, we don't need to like trash the critics at the time, but if we're lucky enough, we will get to go around this block again, this Broadway block. And as this little 21-year-old kid, I was like, oh my goodness, well, this is fantastic. No matter what happens to the show, I'll just come back to Broadway. And so they didn't give me my contract because they said, we're going to wait because we might close tomorrow. Well, the show didn't close the next day, but it closed in a couple of weeks, and I never got a contract. So even though I think of that as my first Broadway show, I don't think of that as the moment that I got the call to be on Broadway for real, because true to Martin Charnin's words, it took me 30 years, almost to the day, to actually be on stage, center stage, in a spotlight, and make my Broadway debut, and that was with the king of, where is he? The king of cartoons, right there in the Pee Wee Herman show, which was 10 years ago this month. This is our 10-year anniversary since we all made our Broadway debut. Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman made his Broadway debut, and Drew Powell, who's actually going to come on my show this Sunday. He's on Gotham now. And
that was only 10 years ago?
It was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I've been here exactly 10 years this month. Back. I had moved to California for a while, but it was like, that moment when I finally got the call, because actually Paul Rubens is responsible for me ultimately being on Broadway. Now, Arnold, you cast Aladdin at California Adventure, the New York portion.
I did the premiere. No, I was in LA too.
Yeah,
I did
in
the
LA
whole premiere. Yeah, we did it. We cast New York and LA, and I can't remember if we went to Chicago on that one, but we may have.
But went to a lot of, it seems like I snuck in at the last minute because you had finished casting and an actor had already been cast as the original Jafar, but he got a play at the Public, and so they needed someone at the last minute. And it just
might have been Jonathan Earl Peck.
No, Jonathan did do it, but Shango, who's also no longer with us, had gotten the role. And so I was actually on tour with the All Night Strut, and my manager at the time, she was an accompanist, Carol Weiss. And she said, they're looking for, isn't she phenomenal?
Oh my God,
so
Carol
good.
Weiss.
Carol Weiss out in Los Angeles. And so she said, Lance, you know what? They're looking for a Jafar for Aladdin at Disneyland. And I said, oh, I don't do theme parks. Then she told me, well, it's a Broadway caliber show, so they're paying Broadway minimum. I was like, what? Yeah,
it was an $18 million production at the time.
Yeah. It got more expensive over to, 18 million was like the beginning price. Well, I said, well, I should definitely go to that audition. Well, I went on a Tuesday, got a call back on a Wednesday, and was offered the job on a Friday. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I was still in Aladdin. I was still doing my tour, and so I had to find a replacement for my tour, and then I started rehearsals. It was October 13th we started out there, and it was a glorious thing. So I'm in that show, and then I had taken a leave to do the Pee Wee Herman show, and then the Pee Wee Herman show, which wasn't going to be like a Broadway show or anything, became so popular out in Los Angeles. There was a rumor that it was going to Broadway, but it was only coming to Broadway for 6 weeks. And so it wasn't enough. They couldn't make enough money to bring everybody from Los Angeles. So Paul Reubens told me, he says, I'm sorry, Lance, but we're going to have to cut a couple of roles. And it's probably going to be either your role or the bear, which was played by Drew Powell.
Or a Patha. Yeah.
Well, her part wasn't in it. They had made another part instead because Patha was on Law and Order by this time anyway, so they couldn't have her
on TV, right?
Yeah, she wasn't available. But we had some great actors, Josh Myers and Phil Lamar, and the original Miss Yvonne, Lynn Stewart, the original Jambi, John Paragon. Everybody was coming, John Moody, but they didn't think that they could bring me. So there I am playing the evil Jafar, and then one day after Paul had already told me that it was possible that I probably wasn't going to get to come, he called me. It was a Thursday. It was in between shows, and I'm in the Jafar full garb and the makeup and everything, but I had to come outside of the theater to check my phone because I didn't get good service down at Disney at the Hyperion Theater. So I come out and I see like Paul Reubens had called me a lot. And I said, oh, more bad news. Can I take this right now? And I was like, I'll just use it for my next performance of Jafar. That's what I was thinking. So I was like, okay, hello, Paul. Yes, I do know Jennifer Kumayama. She was in the original. Damon Bishop just wrote that up there. She is phenomenal. I have a great story about her too.
I've got a lot of great stories about her.
She's amazing. So there I call Paul and he says, hey, Lance, I just want to tell you that be prepared that your agent is going to call you because you're going to Broadway because it's going to be listed in Variety tomorrow. And so I started crying. Which it's so funny when you remember the moment, you do get a little emotional because this is something you dream about. This is something I'd been thinking about for 30 years. I've been working and I got to do all of the production contracts, it seems, in Los Angeles. If a sit down came out there, I got to be in it, whether it was Cats or I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change It, whatever, or Forbidden Hollywood, I got to do it. So I wasn't like, ooh, I gotta, go back to be on Broadway, but it is a dream. It is like the ultimate thing, if you're a theater actor. For many of us, a lot of people are happy, acting wherever because we can tell stories wherever. I realize that, but mine was
and they're
Broadway.
All important.
Absolutely. So there I was. He told me this information, and I'm just like the tears are coming down, and I'm like, wait a minute. First off, I gotta get ready to be evil. And it was funny. The next show that I did, I'm normally like, you will fetch me that lamp. I was like, you fetch me that lamp. I was like, I just wanted to kiss Iago. It was like, I didn't want to go lamp, get me that lamp. I was like, oh, Iago, I'm going to Broadway. It's like,
I'm going to Broadway.
It's so funny.
You go in the cave.
Yes, you go in the cave and we'll sing show tunes. I wanted to tell everyone, but I didn't dare. I didn't say anything because I'm like, what if I just imagined this? Because it didn't seem real. But the next day it did come out in Variety and I saw it in print and it was so glorious. And that was I think July or August. And then we didn't come here till October. But I have to tell you, if you ever are dreaming about Broadway, being in the Pee Wee Herman show was the dream, because what happened was, Broadway is like Ethel Merman and, big stars, come out, Richard Kiley to dream, the impossible dream. Well, I was playing the king of cartoons. Well, the big thing was I had a song where these little flowers singing, it's the king of cartoons, and they sing this like swing tune. And then I get to burst in center stage through a big red door in a spotlight and hold for applause. It wasn't for me, it was for the king, but still, it was so
you
amazing.
Were the king.
It was, but there's a long line of kings, and I know that the fans were just, they were all about the king. But for me, it was like, I remember the moment, and there's actually footage of the very first moment that I stepped on stage that I found on YouTube. And I do remember that moment. I remember just sort of holding and going out there as they were applauding. And it's funny, for our entire run, which Paul did extend the run from 6 weeks to 12 weeks, because he realized, in order to bring everyone there, he needed to do a longer run. And then I found out from Paul, he said, the reason why you're on Broadway, and this is why I always give him credit for everything that I've gotten to do the last decade, is that he said, we're all going to Broadway. He says, but the one person who would really dig it would be Lance. He says, let's do the longer run. We're going to make this really work.
Wow.
And I'm like,
wow.
What
a class act. Wow. That's beautiful.
It's so funny when I think about that. I just constantly get emotional, because it's like when yes is said for anything in our lives, you never know where the road is going to lead you. And, I wouldn't have been in these other Broadway shows. I wouldn't have known Glenn Close or Scarlett Johansson or any of these people if Paul wouldn't have said yes.
Yes is such a powerful word, and that's so beautiful. I mean, look, you can't get further and deeper into my heart than by telling a story of talent being appreciated, because that is, and look, we all know so many stories where talent's not being appreciated.
Correct.
Where people are getting swept to the wayside or whatnot. But that is such a fantastic testament to how powerful yes is. And I'm a big proponent of yes in my audition room. I'm constantly like, so you like them? You like them?
Yeah.
How about you jump out of your chair and offer them the role? How about you begin igniting with that kind of passion and start that collaboration from this place of yes? And they're like, what? Hey, I want to move on to, because this is such a beautiful segue, how passionately you feel and how connected you are to that first moment and what Broadway's Calling is, and how you developed this. I just a little side note, I wasn't on Aladdin by the time you got in there, because Disney is a strange creature all by itself. And they had hired me to do all the initial casting to get the show open. And then they went in-house and basically, of course, cast from my notes after that. But Annie Hamburger was producing at the time, and she was wonderful and very fair with me about how we structured that. So, Disney didn't like the concept of like keeping a casting director on a weekly retainer, because they like money, So that was how that happened. But no, I was happy to do it. And it was a great team to work with, Annie and Francesca and all of them. So the thing is, this Broadway's Calling idea, you mentioned that it's been a Facebook group since 2011. And I was curious about if this show, which is so successful now, if it's something that came out of the pandemic. I mean, this Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. I actually got it right that time, right? That slide. It's, this is something that I've been wanting to do for 8 years. And when the quarantine hit and Broadway shut down, it finally allowed me the time to move it forward. And I wonder if it was similar for you, or how you went from this idea that existed, how it started, what the Facebook group was, and how it became this series.
So the Facebook, page had started, but I also was taking notes of people in the cast of Broadway shows that I was in. And I said, it's going to be a coffee table book. And it was a little bit more in depth, where I asked a lot more just deeper questions of the performers. And then I turned it into a nightclub show, a review show, where there were like 4 actors and one person called Thank You Next, who was like dreaming of being on Broadway and couldn't figure out how to do it, and needed to hear, other people who had been successful, how they made it happen. How did they get the call? And so the other 3 actors played, they did impersonations of all of the people who I had information on. When the pandemic happened, for the first few days, I slept. I was like, okay, I've been going. So I was like, I'm going to just sleep because we're coming back in a couple of weeks. I'm going to catch up on some
Thank
sleep.
you, God, for this break. We're good.
Yes, at the beginning. Then I realized, well, it's been going on. And I was doing a show down at the Public at the time. And they said, oh, April 28th. And then that came and that went. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I need to do something else. I know we'll be back, but Lance himself, I create. I come up with ideas, and I have something called the hot file. And I have notes on my phone, but the hot file is on my laptop. And if I get an idea, whether it's a TV series, a movie, or a reality show, anything, or an idea for a musical review, I love musical reviews. They're not popular now, but I think they're coming back because they're going to be easy to produce and people can stay away from each other. I love, like, Ain't Misbehaving, and we lost Armelia McQueen this weekend.
I know, devastating.
Yes, it was because I found out right before Broadway's Calling on Sunday, but we got to do a little tribute to her. But that musical review was 5 people on stage, and they were spectacular.
Today is Richard Maltby's birthday.
Oh my God! Happy birthday, Richard!
Happy birthday,
directed
Richard!
Us me and Armelia in the 30th anniversary of it at the Amundsen, and he was fantastic. And what he and Arthur Faria and Murray created were 5 people, it was spectacular. They didn't need a helicopter or a chandelier or anything. It was just the people, and I love musical reviews. So I'm always thinking of one, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, but we can't leave our houses right now, Lance. You can't do a musical review right now. And I'm like, what can you do? And I was like, wait a minute, what about my show? My idea, this Broadway's Calling, what about turning that into a show and actually talking to the people live on, I didn't know about StreamYard. My tech producer, Julie Garnier, she's the one who hit me to that because she had been doing it with another show, a jazz show. And she said, hey, maybe I can help you with your show. And that's how it became like, let's just do this thing. And I was like, well, let's take a few months to develop it. And something that younger people are very they jump right into things. It's like, a
the
TikTok
tech is more their language.
Yes, it's their language. And they're like, I'm just going to do a video now. And it's like, me, I'm like, I want to curate it and, think about the arc of the story that we're going to tell, in the first series. I'm like going,
and they're on TikTok going, okay, yes, I'm done.
Done, million views. So, but I was listening to the younger people around me, just go do it. And on YouTube, they say you should start before you're ready. And I go, what? No, we're used to on Broadway, we rehearse, for 6 to 8 weeks. And, we want to really just get right into the material and make sure that we're telling the best story ever. But we're very immediate. We're in an immediate era. And
so just to understand, this was something that was an existing idea that was in motion. It was a Facebook group. It was planned as a coffee table book. But the idea of this Broadway's Calling moment that all of us in show business share or dream of or have experienced or crave to experience, this was the top of the hot file. You went in and you were like, I'm making the show.
Absolutely. And it's like, I didn't know exactly, how to do it. And it was like, it's live. And, now I got my ring light. I got a big softbox light. I know the StreamYard. I get on here and I go, oh, I know how to click that link. And now, which is interesting, I now subscribe to other people's shows because I didn't even know how to subscribe on YouTube. And now I'm subscribing all over. Right. Because what I found is that, I don't do television. I don't have cable for that, but I will watch a lot of the programs on streaming services. And so what I find now is that on YouTube, I watch tons of things, on Hulu, tons of things, because now I'm sort of a part of it. and I get
Yeah,
it.
and there's some great stuff out there. I mean, yours is my favorite, but there are
Thank
some
you.
really great things out there. You know, you're like this. My partner often says to me, the answer to how is yes.
Wow.
And that's what you did. You're the
Yeah.
same yes energy you were talking about
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah.
That like moment of yes, like, you know, that Paul Rubens said, yes, let's extend the 12 weeks. And because Lance will love this, you know, and now here you are creating something for other people with that same yes energy, you know.
Which I'm hoping that when people watch these stories, because you see Glenn Close, you don't think there's a beginning. You think she's always been Glenn Close, but there was a hurdle. You know, I had Wayne Brady, huh?
I saw the original Barnum.
See, yes. And
I remember her beginning. She's good.
Oh, she's very good. Very, very good. And, you know, there's a little struggle, whether it's Wayne Brady, who was already famous, but he had yet to be on Broadway, and he wanted to be on Broadway, and he finally got the call to be on Broadway, and now he's been on Broadway 3 times, and he's looking for his next Broadway show. He loves Broadway.
So great.
Or I remember when Lillias White was this young girl in The Wiz, and we would hear how this fantastic singer was one of the Dorothys on the road. And when she finally came to New York and we saw her on Broadway, it was phenomenal. But many people, like Ben Fankhauser even, he's young still, but he didn't think like, oh, he's going to play a lead in Newsies at 22. He thought, you know, I'll wait, you know, I'll be 35. Maybe I'll make it to Broadway.
Yeah.
Bam. And it's like, so it's very exciting to hear these stories and hear the roads that they took, whether it's through studying, whether it's just walking into an audition. And one of our Eliza Doolittles in My Fair Lady has one of my favorite stories, which I hope to have her on the show. She was starring in the national tour of My Fair Lady. But the beginning is she had, the EMC points? And I think she had just gotten her points.
Equity membership candidate,
And so she, it was like, what was it, like 4 weeks that she had just been out in the acting pool, and she saw an audition for an equity principal audition for a character that she wasn't right for, an older woman, but she was like, I'll just go and they'll see me. Well, they saw her and they were like, yeah, you're a little too young for this, but why don't you come to our open call for the ensemble? So she goes to the open call for the ensemble, and she books her very first Broadway show. And she just had finished being an equity membership candidate 4 weeks prior. And then she goes in. But then we're all like talking and we hear her sing. I was like, you should be Eliza Doolittle. Now, historically, Eliza Doolittle has been played by Caucasian actresses on Broadway in the West End. Well, she is half Egyptian, half Caucasian, but she identifies as African-American, truly African-American, part African, part American.
Right.
And she's beautiful curly hair, and just, but she has this beautiful face and gorgeous voice, and she can dance, she can act and everything. She auditioned, she became one of the understudies. And now she's playing the lead, and she's the first non-Caucasian to ever play the part on Broadway, and now she's playing the lead across the country.
I think they did that at Arena Stage. I know Amanda Nichols, who's Asian American, has played the role. I think that was at the Arena or at the Kennedy Center. Yeah.
It's been done with non-Caucasians many places, but never on Broadway.
But not on Broadway. Yeah, that's
and so it just it doesn't really matter. I mean, there are all types of people in London, and they've been there. You know, it's not like just people of color just arrived in London last year. They've always been there. Yeah. There's a great story when I was doing Finding Neverland. I was playing Mr. Henshaw, who was the premier actor of the J.M. Barrie troupe, and I got the role. I was doing Robert Bridegroom, and we were closing on a Sunday, and I started Finding Neverland Sunday night. So literally, it was on 46th Street, the roundabout, the Laura Pels Theater. I threw my stuff in a baggie from the drugstore, from my dressing room, and I walked across Times Square on 46th Street, went to the Lunt-Fontanne, and then dropped it down in my new dressing room. So when I said you're a Broadway factotum, that's what I meant.
You get your Dwayne Reed bag and you go to the next theater, like Cynthia Nixon in the 80s,
Yes,
going back and
right,
forth from
back
Hurly
and
Burly to the
forth.
real thing. Yeah,
Yes.
that's beautiful. Let's if we may, let's talk a little bit, because this feels like a good place to bring in a little bit about gratitude and how that lives for you in you. I mean, I have to say, just listening to you talk and just my experience of you and knowing you, I know that you live in gratitude, that's a part of your life, that's something that you experience. You live in a grateful, what is the lyric in Sunday in the Park? Not so much do what you want as it is that you like what you do. You live in a place of loving what you do, and and there's that similar thing about be grateful. It's not about having what you want; it's about wanting what you have. You know, and I see all those values kind of radiating from the way you live and the way you work in this profession. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about personally those. Wrong hand again. Those things there.
Those principles.
Those attributes, those principles, those practices. I always think of them as practices because there are times I practice and fail. You know, I just,
absolutely.
You know, there's no question to me that the success of Broadway's Calling has everything to do with your openness, your willingness, your readiness. You know, and I get it that, you know, the Broadway shutdown hit and you were like, I am ready for a nap. That's what I'm doing. And I totally appreciate that. I thought to myself, my God, it's my first day off in 35 years. What the hell am I going to do?
Right.
You know, so I get that. But then right away, you were ready for something else. And you went into your hot file and you were open to something that you already created and existed in some form, and willing to bring it to a whole other level, and you know, willing to embrace technology that, as you described, you know, the kids are right on it and have a video in 10 seconds. But for us, it's a little more prep. You know, so can you tell us a little bit about how those work in how those things, I did it again, those things work in the life of Lance Roberts?
Well, the thing about being grateful, I have a thing for me is that my desire all the time is to find a way to tell stories. That's my desire all the time, which is why it's like, if I go to an audition and I don't get it, and that happens, of course, more often than not, I never feel like bad, because when I was in the room, I got to tell a story. I don't think of it as like, I'm here to get a job, because first of all, everybody's there to get a job. Who cares? It's like, you have to have something else. That experience needs to be something else for you. It can't only about getting a job, having someone give you something. Why don't you give them something? It's an exchange. And it's, you know, and it's like in our, if you want to have a career, you want to get a job, you're fierce, you go in, you get a job, and then you're done. That's great. Good for you. You got that job. Press on. Hey there, Facebook user. We don't know your name. You have to type your name in so we know. But hello. But when I go in there, I'm like I said, I told my story, so I'm done. And then if I get the job, then that's extra. So this is where, you know, I'm reminded about the gratitude about, okay, now I've gotten an opportunity to continue to tell my story. And I've been blessed enough to do a lot of long runs. And people go like, for Aladdin, I did 7,000 performances over 7.5 years. And people go, how do you do it? And I said, well, first off, I forget yesterday's performance, because that doesn't really matter anymore. It only matters today. Because these people, you don't know who's like seeing a show for the first time or who's seeing a show for the last time. So therefore, you just like be present, be in the moment, tell the story today. I did have one time where I got a little self-conscious in the middle of Aladdin, because it was the beginning of YouTube, and we opened in 2002, and around 2004 people were doing bootlegs of Aladdin, and every day they would come down and then someone would, you know, put up another one. Or after a while, Disney just left them up because they realized it made the show a huge success. I mean, it ended up running, it was supposed to go 18 months and it ended up running like 14 years. And a lot of that was because the fans were taking the bootleg and they were commenting on them. Well, actors don't read your comments on YouTube, but I did. And it wasn't, I didn't get, there weren't bad comments. They were actually good comments. And that's what freaked me out, because I was like, oh my God, they're saying they love this and I do this and da. So that's all I was thinking about. I was no longer just telling Jafar's story for that day. I was thinking about, oh, well, they're thinking about this about Lance, so therefore I have to do that. That's not that important.
That's awesome. You know, there's a famous story, if I may just interrupt you there, there's a famous story about Uta Hagen. And she preached, never read your own reviews. And the executive director of HB Studios said to her, well, I know that's not true. I see you read your own reviews. And Uta said, yes, but I know how to read my reviews.
Oh.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, well, I get that, and that must be a great skill. I really don't look at them any longer because it doesn't really serve us. The audience serves us. Even like now, like when I'm doing Broadway's Calling, the audiences, and like here, I'm looking at the comments that are watching your show. They really will inspire us and tell us how to move forward and if things are really working. You can tell that when you're on stage. There is a phenomenal thing where right here, we have a collective energy in this moment, this time, on this program that you've created. The same thing happens in a theater where it's like there's like a collective agreement where I sometimes can be on stage, whether it's a drama, a comedy, or a musical, and I can hear how the entire audience, 2,000 people, can be breathing together. It's a phenomenal feeling. It is such a great agreement, which I also believe that in life, which is like in India, some of the downtown and the big cities, they don't have stoplights, but yet the people don't crash into each other. That's an agreement. It's the same thing. It's the thing. It's like I'm very, very attuned to that. So on the stage, the reason I can do it time and time again is because I realize this is the agreement. We've all decided to come to this moment, to sit in the dark and listen to a story. It's glorious. So I am very, very grateful that I am a chosen person for that moment. It's not forever.
And you know that there have been studies that have looked at the heart rate of audience members as the play goes on.
Yes.
And everyone gets exactly the same heart rate rhythm.
Very
exactly
true.
The same. The entire audience will share a heartbeat. What you're talking about is about the power of now, which is always the point of power, you know, that present moment where things can happen. And, you know, as a performer, you're so present in that, which is what we're always looking for. And right, that audience wasn't there last night. They don't know what you did then.
No,
you know,
it doesn't really matter.
There is a wonderful story that I love from years ago. Shelley Winters was on stage in a show, and she was screaming at the stage manager. She was brilliant, of course. And she was screaming at the stage manager that there was a door that slammed every night in the middle of her dramatic scene. And she wanted it stopped, and she wanted to know what was going on and why that door slammed in the same place in the play every single night, and why no one could find out where the door was slamming. And of course, it was the 1950s. And they you know, looked at it, and they tried to figure out what she was hearing. And then they realized it was the collective unclutching of women's purses to reach for hankies, or 1,500 women at the same moment clicking their purse open, because in the 50s they all had that
right,
like,
little snap, yeah.
You know, and that snap times 1,500 made it sound like a door slam to her in the cavern. So it is that collective experience of now is so much what we're doing for. I love what you said about when I audition, I'm there to tell a story, and I get what I want at the end of it, and I leave satisfied that I got to tell my story.
Done.
That
You're
is
done.
something beautiful.
Done. I whenever I coach actors, I like, forget about yourself. You know, I learned a long time ago, someone told me there's no I in actor. So therefore,
that's great.
Just tell your story. It's like, if you're worrying about yourself as the actor, and I would, a couple of things. It's like, I'll tell you, because I mean, you're behind the table. And now the next time you see me, you can go, oh, I know what he's thinking. When we tell stories,
I know what they're all thinking.
Yeah, I know they're all thinking. But when we tell stories to like a group of like kids or kindergartens, or if you're at a holiday party or whatever, you go, once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. You just tell the story. You don't go, well, how should I say once upon a time? There were 3. You don't, oh, no, just tell the story. Well, it's the same thing when you go in for an audition. First of all, you have to know your story that you're going to tell. If you don't know, then that's part of the work before you walk in. But just tell the story, and they're going to enjoy it because you're all lovers of the art. You're shopping, so you want to find the perfect shirt, and the perfect pants, so the perfect soprano, alto, tenor. So just go in there. You're going to be perfect. You may not get the job, but you'll be perfect if you tell the story. And so I really, really believe in that. And it takes away so much stress from being in the moment. Now, there are other things I know. Sometimes maybe your voice isn't there or you don't know the words or something like that. You have to also remember that it's live. You're human. And it's like you tell the story the best way you can. Some of our best artists, from Carol Channing to one of my favorite is Bernadette Peters in Song and Dance. She allowed the emotion to get to her that her voice, she didn't sing things perfectly. And it felt like, because she was like, this is what I have. It's like, if I'm crying and this is how this note comes out, this is how the note comes out. And won the Tony Award. I'll never forget that performance because I just felt like she wasn't worrying about, she can sing all of those notes perfectly. She can. She has sense in concert. But in the play, she allowed herself just to tell the story as Emma, the character that she was playing.
We are celebrating the Richard Maltby canon today on
That's
his
true.
birthday. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yes, Richard Maltby. Well, we're talk a little starting now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Lance, we have just a little under 10 minutes left, but anything else? Oh, wrong hand again. Anything else on there?
I'll say
any of those.
I'll just say, it's like about Ready quickly, that right now, this moment when we're sitting here, oh my God, I'm so glad I caught this. So proud of you, Lance Jafars. I also saw Mark Cedric Smith, who's also one of the Jafars in Aladdin. But I think of this time, they say, oh, maybe we'll be back next year. I think of this as preseason. So whatever our passions are, and I've noticed people are doing their passions. If they wanted to always travel, people are traveling. If people wanted to create, like knit or whatever, they've been knitting. They've been doing everything this is their time to have their passion. But it's also your time, if you're planning on doing something next year, whether it's in the show business or anything, this is preseason. This is the time, like I have to learn guitar for a certain thing that's coming next year because I'm like, this is preseason, Lance. Maybe no one's asked me to learn guitar, but there is time. So that's what I mean about, be ready for what's coming. So take this time to be ready and just to be open to all the new things, like the young people who are constantly yelling at me. Well, it's like if you've all been on Zoom calls, it's like, Lance, you're on mute. Where the hell is the mute? But
right.
That it's like, you got to be open to the young people. They're going to tell us all the information, and young people need to be open to know that we've lived long enough. We have some wisdom. We have some things to talk about, and just be willing, I think, to smile and to laugh at yourself.
Not take ourselves too seriously. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's like we have to. It's like this is a crazy time, but it's like we don't get to be together. This is a great way, or watching any of the other shows on Facebook Live or streaming or Instagram Live and YouTube. But it's like, if we can find time to not only laugh just in general at the funny things that happen, but laugh at ourselves and go, oh, I'm crazy. I've been walking around in my pajamas for 2 days and looking, crazy. That's all right. One day I actually said, I'm like, I am like 1 day away from Grey Gardens,
A friend of mine posted on Facebook during the quarantine, the number of you posting how impressed you are with yourselves for taking a shower is really terrifying me.
Absolutely. Where you go, well, no, I'm all right. I can. It's like,
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Are you wearing pants? Am I wearing pants?
I am wearing pants. I'm even wearing shoes today.
Oh, we got shoes. That's
yeah, out of my slippers. I find it's just easier, more grounding, to have on real shoes when I'm talking. If I'm in my slippers, I may doze off.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen. Well, we're gonna close up here, though. I would honestly, I would love to talk to you for another hour or two here. But do you want to tell our folks out there in TV land or Facebook Live land a little about Broadway's Calling? I'm a huge fan, and I really appreciate that. Who don't know about it, can you hook them in, because it's so worth their time?
Well, Broadway's Calling is basically, I get together with my friends that I've worked with on Broadway, from Glenn Close to my best friend, oldest friend from high school, Donna Murphy. And I've had Lilius White and Ben Fankhauser and Chrissy Altamere and Chuck Cooper, Lily Cooper, his daughter. Last week was Laura Benanti and Lauren Ambrose from My Fair Lady. And I just so many, Epatha Murkison for LA Law. But I think the secret weapon is that I've worked with all of those people, and we were friends before they were famous, most of them, and we've had this long friendship. And I've been around for so many of the times when they actually got the call to be on Broadway or to a TV series or something like that. And we just share that as just two friends just hanging around talking. And thank you. I see Broadway's Calling. But yeah, it's on YouTube, and you can just type in Broadway's Calling with Lance Roberts, and you can find it, and all the episodes play. And what I try to do is do a profile on each of these performers, because there's no real place to get a profile to find out about Broadway people. They don't do it even about movies anymore.
Right.
But they used to do that a lot, where it was like an hour long. You sit down with Dick Cavett or Tom Snyder and talk. And now everything is so fast. But now you really get to see, a lot of people didn't know Glenn Close had done musicals or been on Broadway, and she has 3 Tony Awards. Or a lot of people didn't realize that Wayne Brady, who is on, he's a game show host, and of course we know him for his improv. They didn't know he had been on Broadway, or that was on great TV shows. They were like, what? How I Met Your Mother? Oh my God, that was Wayne Brady. So I try and mix it up so people really find out, get a well-rounded sense of each of these people who have been dear friends. And I'm looking forward to Drew Powell, who's coming on, who we made our Broadway debut together in the Pee Wee Herman show. And maybe a very special guest star will pop in this Sunday. You never know. And we have some cool people from Hamilton right after that. And then,
I think playing Jafar, all those performances taught you how to be a little bit of an evil temptress, because that's very enticing.
Oh, do you think so?
I must say, because it really is, I just think it's important to just state it. It says so much about you that all of these people that you've worked with in these shows are so happy to come on and do this with you, that it's, I know a lot of people who worked on shows, myself included, who if you went back to someone in that show, they'd be like, I was so happy to think I'd never see you again. And I'm not saying it happens a lot, but in 1 or 2 cases, I'm like, yeah, let's just go our separate way. But just the fact that your expanse of people who love you and have such a good experience of you, that they're so happy to come on and talk so personally and reveal themselves in this. It's just it just is such a tribute to you and the kind of person you are, and your very giving, loving manner. I'm always teaching. I teach a class at NYU. I've been teaching it for 20 years now, about preparing for the profession. And one of the things I always tell them about is how the greatest thing about the theater is community. And that's the greatest gift of a life in the theater, is this community is so powerful and so strong and so extraordinary. There's really nothing like it anywhere else in the world. The vulnerabilities that we share, the way we're there for one another on stage and situations and such. And And you're such a great example of how that community works, that you
Thank
can, after a 10-year career on Broadway, or, well, if we count it from the first, it's at least a 12-year, right? I just,
Oh,
from somewhere in the last century,
right.
but all of these people are so enamored of you and respect you and regard you so highly that they're very happy to come into this new venture and just, be with you and open up about themselves. I just
They're
think
saying yes as well, and helping me, because they are definitely helping me and lifting me, and they realize how important it is to connect with everybody out there and to inspire. So I'm really grateful for them saying yes constantly, to say, yeah, I'll come on your show. And when they get on there, and you were talking about community, Glenn Close said the same exact thing. And, as we're trying to raise money for the Actors Fund and different charities, something that I noticed about the theater community is that, when we started, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, it was to take care of the AIDS epidemic. But so much money came in and so much work from the people in the theater community, and not just Broadway performers, off-Broadway, regional theater performers, national tour performers. I know people who barely have their equity card who dance in the what's it called, the Legacy Robe.
Red Bucket Follies now.
Red Bucket Follies now. And the Easter Bonnet. People really get together, but now that those organizations like the Actors Fund and Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, they are getting great amounts of money that they're able to help people outside of our community, which is glorious.
Yeah.
It's like the Broadway Cares is now, I guess they have given grants to someone in every single state in America.
So beautiful.
And
so
it's just, so that's our community that you were talking about.
The power
and
of what we can do.
It's so rich, and it's exciting. And like you were saying, whatever amount that people had to donate to the Actors Fund, I always say it's like, if you can, $1 is good, because there are 330 million people in America.
Yeah.
If everyone gave $1, it'd be okay, but you wouldn't feel it. Certain people, that's still a burden, but most of us can give $1, a spare change that you just have on your dresser.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just write it, and you may feel like, oh, I'm not giving enough. You are giving enough.
You are.
Because there are tons of us.
As long as we all do it, as long as we come together in community.
Yes.
Lance Roberts, I love you. Lindsay, you're going to figure out how to get us off of StreamYard and Facebook without doing that clunky thing I do sometimes. Right? Thank you. Sometimes the end of these cut off because I pushed the wrong button, but Lindsay's here. We're good. But thank you, Lance Roberts, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
This discussion that turned out to be about the power of yes, which is one of my favorite topics in the world.
Great.
And which I've seen create miracles for not just actors, but all people, not just in show business, but in the world. So Thank you for bringing our awareness to that tonight. And we will see you on Broadway's Calling.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Good night. Good night, everyone. Thanks so much.